Hi, gang. As I mentioned last week, I wanted to give you a little demonstration of a stencil making. Now, you can see here that I've got a couple of stencils. It's a dragonfly. I've done these on acetate, actually, but even that tends to break down over time after lots of demos. But you can see what it looks like. I've got a moose here as well. This one's broken as well, unfortunately, but you can sort of stick them together. Now, what I do is I spray the back of this with something called trim clad. That's the trim clad. Krylon Easy Tack. And what it does is it makes the back sticky. And when it's sticky, it lies down and stays down on whatever surface it is that you're trying to spray on. So to start out with, what I'm going to do, and I probably should mask this because I don't want to really screw this up. You can see that I've already sprayed a stencil previously, and I'm not sure. I think I did this with spray paint, the trim clad. But there's other ways to do it. I've got something here called an atomizer. Now, if you go to Curry's and ask for one, they probably won't know what the heck it is, but ask them to check the catalog because they have it in there. This is the poor man's airbrush and sort of the poor man's spray can as well. But what you do is you blow through this. You basically, what can I mark or rather mask this with? Here's actually, I don't know if you can see that well. The lighting in here is getting worse because it's getting dark outside. It's starting to pour, but you can see that I masked off this toad here and I sprayed some texture on it. You can get a cool texture look with the atomizer. I also sprayed a light spray here for the dragonfly. It actually makes kind of an interesting composition, except for that little blob there, but what the heck. I'll keep the blob. Here's another stencil that I did a few years ago. Once again, done with acetate, and I've masked it off just to prevent paint flying around, getting all over the place. But this is my crazy suicide fish. And let's try something right now. Okay, so I'm going to show you. And I'm probably going to have to turn the camera around a bit and then reposition it. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to use some of this. This is acrylic ink by Rotring. And I really should mask stuff a little bit more because I don't want paint flying all around, and as it tends to do. Probably a good idea to get my sculpture out of the way. I've been shooting all kinds of videos here from sculpture with Sculpey and etc. etc. So this place is a freaking mess. If my wife comes in here, she's going to yell at me. She's going to yell at me anyway. So, okay, so here we go. I want to show you how this actually works, which means I sort of have to be in the picture. So what I'm going to do is actually put this end in my mouth here. And I'm going to put this end, can you see? Into this. And then what I'm going to do is actually blow. There we go. Man, you have to have lungs like an athlete for this. Okay, so the trick here is to let it dry. So I'm going to turn off the camera. Let's cut for a bit. Let's find some place to put this first. There we go. That's my bird. You can't see it. I'll be back. This is a slightly better view of the toad that I told you that I masked off. And I simply sprayed it using that atomizer to create some very interesting texture. It looks like a very rough toad skin. And there, of course, is the good old dragonfly. I think I'm going to crop that and frame it. I like it. Meanwhile, here's the red moose drying. So I'm going to wait a few more minutes and then peel that off. Sometimes what happens is the stencil lifts a little bit and a little bit of the paint gets underneath, but it's not usually a major problem. Like I said, the Easy Tack, good old Easy Tack by Krylon. It's a spray adhesive. This one unfortunately is clogged at the moment, but if you spray the back of your stencil, it sticks it to the surface that you wish to spray, and it creates a nice sharp edge, usually. Sometimes things lift. You never know what you're going to get entirely, but usually the results are pretty good. And you know what? So what if you have a happy accident? Sometimes it adds to the look of the art. So I think it's dry enough. What I'm going to do is simply carefully remove it as best I can. And you'll see that this has fallen apart over many years of use. It's still pretty sticky underneath. What do we got here? So we've left part of the stencil there. Not a bad thing. I'm going to put it on the wood. And then I'm going to use a sharp instrument. I don't know if that's probably still, it's still very wet. What did I tell you? Be careful. I probably should have waited a bit longer. Now, I think I want to put it on here. That's where the leg is. And it should go down a little bit more, I think. Best to wait until it's actually dry. Then I'd probably be best to add a little bit more spray glue to this. But I'm going to let that dry a little bit more. But you can see that what we have here is a pretty good stencil. Now, I've used crappy old paper, obviously, but with stuff already on it. Stuff is actually sprayed through and so forth. And you can see where in some places the paint has gotten underneath a little bit, but you know, it doesn't matter that much. It tends to make things look rougher and edgier and kind of cooler, I think. So that works very well. The next step is I'm going to actually spray. I'm going to use some rust paint of all things. Now there are all kinds of paints out there that are formulated for graffiti artists. But frankly, I don't think there's that much of a difference between that and your standard hardware store fare. Good old Tremclad. It will never rust. The advantage of some of those spray paints for graffiti artists specifically are that they come with a huge selection of. Whoops! I whacked this thing again. Tips. The spray tips, you can get a variety of different types, so you can actually create sort of different brushes and so forth. So let's, I don't want to really touch that. I'll tell you what I'm going to do is blot it up with my good old paper towel here. Now this is an acrylic ink, so it's going to dry quite nicely. It will take a long time to dry, mind you. But what I want to do is press that down there. Now, is that where I want it? I might just add some type to this at some point. And which means I probably should move that up a little bit, which means I'm going to screw everything up. Let's just put that up a little bit, because I might just want to put some lettering on this thing and make a little sign. Let's put this back. I mean, I don't care if there's a lot of extra paint, a few little drips here and there. Like I say, it adds to it. So let's position that. I mean, it's going to be covered in black anyway. And even if I leave a little gap there, it's not a big deal. You'll see that you need to design the stencil so that it has some structural integrity to it. In other words, parts of it have to be held together. And quite often, those parts that hold the pieces together are quite small and narrow. And what happens then, of course, is that they get fatigued and they break, which is not always a big deal, because you can if you've got the Easy Tack glue, you can basically stick it down. And even if if I get some red on here, I don't care. What the heck, let's throw caution to the wind. What the heck? Enjoy art, play with it, explore. Shit, I'm starting to sound like Miss Frizzle. All right, so I think that's down pretty well. So what I'm going to do, I don't care if there's some red in there, rub it down. The harder you rub it down and burnish it, the cleaner the edge you're going to have. See, that edge is kind of sticking up there. And if you do see an edge sticking up, you can spray with it rather than into it. All right, so let's do this. Let's do this, kids. Whoops, don't use the Easy Tack. That'll just make it all sticky. Make sure you mix your paints well. In other words, shake it up. And there's yet another mousse. So what I'm going to do is sort of mask off that area. I don't want all my stuff covered in solid black. And that'll block it. That'll block it. What else do I have? I mean, there's junk all over the place. Yeah, here's a demo I just did for a second semester. So let us cover that up a little bit. Pays to mask. And of course there's that area there. Now you'll see when I spray this stuff that the paper will kind of fly up thanks to the pressure of the paint. Ah, here's a demo I did for you guys. Remember the chickadee? Yeah. This will do. Now ideally, really, what I should do and what you should do is tape it all down so it doesn't fly. Let's make sure that that is well and truly mixed up. We'll zoom in there a little bit if I can. Yeah, that's good. It looks like you're getting a bit of reflection off there. Oh well. This acrylic paint on acetate tends to shine things up, and of course you get light bouncing off it, but I think that's pretty good. It's a good idea to try a test spray. Oh, that's pretty good. All right. So, not too far away, not too close, and what you're trying to do is lay a... Whoa, told you. That's where some masking tape would come in very handily. Not too heavy, light strokes. Very light spray, a foot away. I could probably put a couple of coats on here. Okay, I've waited a little while, and the wood is quite dry. The acetate, not so much, but it gives me a chance to put on another coat of paint. And once again, make sure you shake the hell out of this. And it's a good idea to, at the end of any spray session with a can of spray paint, you're supposed to turn it upside down. I would do this outside, not on your friend's back. Give it a good shaking. You take it outside, spray it, just to clean the nozzle. But I'm going to put another fairly light coat on here. I don't want it too heavy, but I want enough paint on there. Remember, just short, quick strokes. Uh-oh, what happened there? Okay, I let this thing dry overnight, and it's quite dry. I wonder if I got a little bit of underspray there, but let's see what happens. So what I'm going to do is use a sharp object. Remove my masking. Whoa, that's sticky. Ooh, fair bit of underspray there. Doesn't matter. because it's masking. So use an X-Acto knife or a matte knife, something sharp, just to remove that carefully. And you can see the wood has a little bit of absorbency to it. So it's not super sharp, but it's not bad. So what I'm going to do with that, look, oh, check this out, a little bit of overspray here. And what I can do with that is I'm going to play around with this a little bit, add some texture